Hey, how's it going? We've just had the midnight reveal, and that cinematic, which of course has spawned a lot of discussion online, I thought was pretty damn great. And what I want to do today is go through and do my own personal, subjective tier list of every single WoW cinematic and how I feel about them. So, a few things before we get started, because I am going to go and watch each one and then rank it. I have deleted the D tier. I did look for a pre-made World of Warcraft cinematic template just so I wouldn't have to go and grab all of these images because I'm lazy like that. And I found one that A, was out of date, but B, came pre-made with someone else's ideas. And the amount of stuff they put in D tier was astonishing to me. And I also noticed it was all the expansions which we as the player base have decided are bad. So, quick disclaimer, I am ranking the cinematics, and some really bad expansions have really good cinematics, and some really good expansions have some just okay cinematics, in my opinion. So I think that could be interesting to discover as we go along, and I'll give my reasonings for each. But also, I don't think we're going to get down to D tier. Broadly speaking, I think all of these are amazing. I already know which my least favourite probably is, but we'll get to it. So without further ado, I'm going to go rewatch the vanilla cinematic trailer, and I'll talk about how I feel about it, and we'll place it where it deserves to be. Ah, the OG! I cannot remember when I first saw this trailer. For some quick context, I first tried the game back in Burning Crusade, and then I really got into it from Mists onwards. But yeah, the OG, it's different to all of the other trailers, because all of the other trailers set up a premise for, a person of interest or a place that we're going to, whereas this has to set up the entire world of Warcraft. And so we see the Forsaken, the Tauren, we see the Dwarf, we see the Night Elf shapeshifting into a cat, we see the different kind of skirmishes going on between the two factions, and oh, it's so cool. I would be tempted to put it in S tier if I didn't know how much quality cinematic was ahead of us, but I think I'm going to put it in A tier. It is interesting, by the way, because I do think they've tried to continue making these style of cinematics in recent years. With Shadowlands, we got a second CGI cinematic of, the different, I forget what they're called now, but like paragons or whatever of the Shadowlands. And then we got the dragon riding one in cinematic, in Dragonflight, which was a bit different. But they did it again for the War Within. We got the different zones of the different races. We saw Rowena, the Haranir lady doing her thing and stuff like that. And I do wonder if we're going to get one for Midnight as well. But anyway, we're not doing those, we're just doing the Prime Announcement cinematics here, and I believe that the OG one firmly belongs in A. Now, on to the Burning Crusade.
You are not prepared!
Banished from my own homeland. Oh, I love the cinematics so much. Oh, so yeah, Burning Crusade, obviously, as I mentioned, it's when I first tried the game, and this cinematic is just... I'm going to use this phrase a few times, to be fair, but this cinematic is just fucking iconic, isn't it? It's just iconic, there's no other word for it. So, first of all, it has been a minute since I watched this. I was wrong. I forgot we do the WoW vanilla cinematic thing again. Obviously, the main thing I forgot was we see the Draenei and we see the Blood Elf. That, I think, iconic, Blood Elf, mana worm siphoning. What's it called again? Arcane, it's not Arcane Torrent. Anyway, using her racial ability. And then we actually reused some of the assets from the vanilla trailer, which I find interesting. Some of it, well, I thought we reused the location with the human throwing fireballs down at the Infernal in the original cinematic, but I was wrong about that. It's actually Karazhan. We see Karazhan in this trailer, which is wild. I never really picked up on that before. But yeah, I love seeing Vindicator Murad. I believe that's him. I don't think he had a name back then, but I'm pretty sure in Warlords of Draenor, when we cooked up Vindicator Murad, it was that guy. He had the same design, the same armor and all that, right? Same face. And I could be wrong, but at least I think so, and the same hammer. And I love the kind of like detail on the hammer of like the shards, kind of like they're not absolutely static and stationary. You know, it's like the little details I'm picking up. But yes, of course, the main thing is Illidan, and you are not prepared, that iconic voice line. And I just love it so much. Obviously, it's going in S tier. Obviously, it's going in S tier. I'm not a heathen. And yeah, I just, you know, the dark portal turning green. I can't remember if I saw these cinematics before I ever played the game itself. I probably watched it while it was installing. We actually could not get the game to download and install fully on the family PC when I must have been about 12 at the time. And we gave up on it for a few months. So I think we wasted my free month of subscription there. Anyway, there's a bit of Christian starting World of Warcraft lore for you. Shall we move on to the next one? I wonder if it will be any good.
My son, the day you were born, the very forests of Lordaeron whispered the name Arthas.
So, not to spoil the rest of the video or anything, there's still a lot of good stuff ahead, a lot of gushing ahead of us. But this is the best cinematic they've ever made, right? There's no question. There's no question that the Wrath of the Lich King cinematic is peak. It's absolute peak. And I will explain my reasoning instead of just gushing at you. But when you go back and rewatch that cinematic, and you've got to remember, I've never played Warcraft 3, I don't have any connection, or I didn't have any connection to Arthas as a character. This didn't hit for me the same way it would have hit for someone who had played Warcraft 3, and yet it just tells the story so perfectly in such a short amount of time, and it does so through, well, first of all, that incredible soundtrack and the you know, the rendering on the Lich King and his actions and his body language and everything he does, but mostly that voiceover from King Terenas, and how it juxtaposes with what Arthas actually is and what he's actually doing. Like, he says about using your power with restraint as Arthas raises Sindragosa, and then they talk about how your people will follow you as he raises an army of the dead, and it's just so masterfully done. I could write an entire goddamn essay about this cinematic and how perfect it is. I don't think there's a single flaw to be found in a single frame. It's just the best. It's just the absolute best. And I don't want to give away the rest of the video by saying that, but I don't think I can accurately portray my feelings about the cinematic without saying that. It's just unparalleled. However, there is a lot of good stuff ahead of us, so let's continue on to World of Warcraft Cataclysm.
And all will burn beneath the shadow of my wings.
So this is where it gets interesting, because of course World of Warcraft Cataclysm is the very first expansion to have a bad reputation. It's not remembered fondly, it's where developers started taking missteps with game design, so on and so forth. But we're not talking about that, we're talking about the cinematic, with Deathwing being released from his prison and causing this earth-shaking cataclysm and rending the world asunder and landing on Stormwind and doing a big angry roar. How do we feel about that? Because I'm going to stop using the word iconic here. In fact, this might be our lowest rated cinematics yet, and it's not because it's bad, it's still a great cinematic. But something about it is missing what the previous cinematics had, in my opinion, at least just a little bit, and maybe it is, You know, as much as I'm trying not to let the expansion it's announcing affect my judgment, there's inevitably going to be some subconscious bleed over of how I feel due to the expansion itself, which I've only ever played kind of, you know, when I got into Mists, so it was like for level 1 to 85 before Mists experience, right? And I don't love how it revamped the world, etc. However, just the cinematic itself, while it does look great, the story it tells is less interesting than the Arthas one. And I guess the voice work and the dialogue is less, you know, iconic than the Burning Crusade one. And ultimately, if I was a Redditor with not much media literacy, I would probably say not a whole lot happens in this one, which of course isn't true. It's just what people say when they're a little underwhelmed. And I think this cinematic tries just a little too hard to be super crazy and cool and exciting. I was going to put it in C tier before I rewatched it. However, maybe I will put it in B tier. Maybe nothing will end up in C tier in this video, despite me including it. But, I don't know. I might change my mind. This might end up in C tier as we continue reviewing different cinematics, but it's definitely my least favourite so far. Now, on to Mists of Pandaria. Now, this is a very interesting one. There is a lot to unpack here because, in my opinion, this cinematic debuted badly and, in retrospect, isn't that great either because it's a cinematic that mostly builds on the mystery of where we are and what we're doing, which we now know and can expect. So, as a cinematic viewed in 2025, when Mists of Pandaria is a long known of part of World of Warcraft, it's not that exciting or interesting to rewatch. And when it debuted at BlizzCon, it was quite famously received poorly. I don't know if the cinematic was, but the expansion announcement was for sure. Just because people were like, wait, really? We're doing pandas? Come on, man. Like, we're doing Kung Fu Panda? The Pandaren were like an April Fool's joke in a Warcraft game or something. I don't remember the full specifics, but yeah, people weren't happy with it. Nowadays, Mists of Pandaria is remembered very fondly. It was a very good expansion. It did shake out to be great. However, I still think the cinematic does leave something to be desired. It lacks it lacks spice. It lacks zest. It lacks punch. It's a fun fight scene. It's not a bad cinematic, hence why there's no D tier. It's still good, it's still fun to watch, don't get me wrong, but just as a cinematic to go back and revisit, as a cinematic as part of World of Warcraft's history, I think it actually is below Cataclysm for me. I think it's my least favourite so far. But, hey, that's a fun example of how I'm not allowing how I feel about an expansion to at least consciously affect how I rank one of their cinematics, because just to reiterate, I love Mists of Pandaria. I think it's great. I'm not crazy about the cinematic. But anyway, we're halfway there, I think. Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nope, the images are slightly different sized. We are nearly halfway there. Let's move on to Warlords of Draenor, which was my first real expansion reveal while I was playing the game properly and excited to see what was next.
Slaves! But we will be conquerors.
Okay, so you know how I keep saying the quality of a trailer is not indicative of its quality as an expansion? You know, I keep hammering that point home. That's because I'm worried I might lose a few people here. But I love the Warlords of Draenor cinematic, and maybe it's because it was my first real I'm excited to see what expansion is next. Here's the expansion that is next for me, hit. maybe it's because I was super into the lore as I got into the game properly with Mists of Pandaria, and I knew how these events were meant to go, and so to see this alternate universe reality play out, and I do like alternate universe realities as well as a human being, as like a subjective interest, I thought it was so cool to see the aversion of Gromash's fate, especially when they started to redo Gromash's death from Warcraft 3 with Manaroth kind of like exploding or whatever. And then you see Garrosh, who is averting this fate because he has warned Gromash not to drink the blood, dive and save his father, or his alternate universe father, or whatever. And I think that is so interesting. Now, of course, they dropped the ball within the expansion itself with its narrative quite hard, and that will always be something that I regret and wish that they had done justice, because I really do have a soft spot for Warlords of Draenor, especially its soundtrack as well. That really helps. But I think this is going to go top of A tier. It's so good. It really is. It's also maybe the most narrative heavy one we've had since Wrath of the Lich King. Like, obviously, we've got the unleashing of Deathwing, and we've got meeting Taran. I believe that's Taranzu, right? And the Pandaren and stuff. But in terms of like the amount of dialogue and just like telling of a story, I think this is the first since Wrath of the Lich King that we've really gone this hard on this. And yes, I just love this cinematic. I have a real soft spot for it. So we will never be slaves. Yeah, you know, that stuff. So I wish they hadn't dropped the ball on the expansion, but that cinematic is pretty dope. Next, Legion.
Anduin, I now believe, as you do, that peace is the noblest aspiration. But to preserve it, you must be willing to fight.
Okay. I might have some... Okay, that surprised me. For whatever reason, when I think of the WoW Legion cinematic, I think primarily of the airships and going into the storm. And for that reason, I thought it might be a B tier cinematic for an S tier expansion. For some reason, my mind did not jump to Varian's aura farming. I guess we use aura farming as a term these days, right? And the crash onto the beach and the voiceover and everything. This cinematic is better than I remembered. Why did I forget how good this cinematic was? Okay, yeah, I love this thing. The main thing I've noticed upon rewatch is the lack of crew upon either the airship or the Zeppelin. It's mostly, there might be a few people running around as Varian goes onto the deck, but when stuff starts hitting the fan, it's mostly Varian by himself on the airship and Sylvanas by herself on the Zeppelin. And you kind of hear like audio cues indicating there's people running around and falling and fighting and dying, but because you can very clearly see they're not there, it is a little... Anyway, that's a nitpick that I'm spending too much time on. The voiceover, they're doing the voiceover thing again for the first time since Wrath of the Lich King. I guess it's a human motif, voiceover like that, although BFA is different. But yeah, ultimately this cinematic is the culmination of Varian Rin's character development and how he's grown as a person and how Anduin has affected him and how the effects of Mists of Pandaria have led to here as well, and it just is pretty hype all around as well. So again, if I had one more nitpick, it's that they don't linger on Varian yelling for Azeroth as long as they should for how that voice line sounds. It's always seemed weird to me, but other than that, I think this also has to go top of A tier next to Warlords. In fact, you know what, it's really difficult for me to choose, but I think it's got to go ahead of Warlords of Draenor. It's so good. Anyway, Battle for Azeroth.
Stand as one for the Alliance!
Okay, so this one is probably the one that's the most difficult for me to separate my feelings for the expansion and general overall story from the cinematic itself, because in general, and maybe this is, arguably a problem with the cinematic itself as well, then, I cannot stand that after Pandaria and after Legion, we chose to go into a faction war storyline. To me, it felt so painfully contrived. It felt like it wasn't right for Sylvanas' character. It felt like it wasn't right for Anduin's character to a lesser extent. And I just couldn't stand it. However, I know a lot of people love this cinematic, and that intro hits really hard with like the overview of Lordaeron from the top, and then Sylvanas' voiceover with that amazing music right at the start. It feels quite Game of Thrones, and to be fair, I think a lot of the issues with BFA was that it was trying to be very Game of Thrones, right? But just the fact that this is depicting a siege, depicting a war, and it has moments you would expect to see in a larger narrative about, a battle. It has both sides falling back and then rallying. And I think it's so cool, like, that you see these hero type figures in Sylvanas and Anduin as you get those hero figures that you control in Warcraft 3, right, to change the flow of battle. I think it's very true to the Warcraft formula. However, I just can't get away from how much I detest that this battle even happened, and it has too much baggage for me. So I think we're going to compromise, and I'm going to put it above Cataclysm in B. I know that's sacrilege. I know a lot of people would put this in S tier, but me personally, this is my list. I can't enjoy the cinematic because I can't get over how much I don't want it to exist. But yes, let's move on to Shadowlands. Oh boy, we've got a lot to talk about there as well.
This world is a prison. Set us all free.
Okay, so here's another one that my feelings have changed on a little bit since I last watched it, because when I think of the Shadowlands cinematic, I think of it in the same vein as the Warlords of Draenor cinematic, that it was an excellent cinematic for a bad expansion, right? Especially in terms of like how it follows up those story beats. Bolvar was absolutely wasted, so on and so forth. But the cinematic itself, I remember absolutely loving, and in some ways I still do. However, watching it back now, I do wish that Bolvar had been a bit more effective against Sylvanas. He was the Lich King. But that being said, the Sylvanas breaking the Lich King crown was really cool to see, because a lot of people were worried that she was just going to put it on her head and become the Lich Queen. It seemed very predictable and inevitable. So it was really cool to see her break it in half. But even more interestingly was the sky breaking. I still think that is such a good effect. It just takes you aback because you're not expecting it. And that looming spire of what we now know to be like Torghast, kind of that inverted world, that hint of this other world that we know nothing about, is so just, or at least at the time, it was so intriguing and so like, I can't find a word. Not fetching. Anyway, so yeah, I have mixed feelings about this cinematic now, because watching it back, I didn't like how ineffective Bolvar was, although he does look great. I think I'm going to have to put it in B tier. And I don't know if I can put it above Battle for Azeroth. But if it was just the ending of this trailer, it would be an A tier. But I don't know. As a trailer entire, I think it goes in B tier. This is less controversial than I think I was anticipating to be. Anyway, let's move on to Dragonflight. We're nearing the end here. Okay, so heads up, I accidentally clicked on the War Within trailer and forgot all about Dragonflight, and then recorded the War Within afterwards. But I am going to put the Dragonflight one first, but I'm going to zoom in on the Dragonflight logo just so that you can't see where I put the War Within before I get to talking about that one. Okay, so there we go, Dragonflight. That is either the longest or the slowest cinematic, I think, out of all of them. But it's not bad. It's interesting. Some details that I've noticed for the first time upon this rewatch is I really like how the Stone Watchers move. Like, it's very, you know, stuttery, staccato, stop-start, however you want to say it. You get the impression that they are beings made of stone. And something that I didn't remember from this trailer as well was the cracks appearing on Watcher Coronos's body as he's straining himself, and the kind of concern of, like, you know, all of his Watcher friends have kind of crumbled away over the years. You know, what kind of state is his body in? And of course he almost dies, and we see him accepting his fate as he falls, only to be rescued by Alexstrasza. It's a good cinematic. It is good. It's not, again, it doesn't have the spice. It doesn't have, like, I know what's happening here. It's a bit like the Miss of Pandaria one, in that it's like teasing you. It's like, where are we? What are we doing? Why are we here? What's this about? Why is this kind of familiar but not? I do think it holds up a bit better than the Miss of Pandaria cinematic, though. I do think it's just that little bit more interesting, because there's more unknowns to it, I think. But yeah, just in general, it's the same way I feel about the Dragonflight expansion. It was fine. It was good. I liked it. I don't remember a whole lot of it. I don't remember why the Isles had to be put to sleep and then reawakened. I don't remember what the potentially contrived reason for that was. But yeah, it was good. It was good. It was good.
My son.
I am not that person anymore. I have no light. Not after what I've seen. Not after what I've done.
Okay, so the War Within cinematic. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about this one because I haven't rewatched it since, you know, it was announced. And as we've seen in this tier list, as much as I'm trying to base this on the cinematics themselves, there is inevitably some baggage with how you feel about the narrative as a whole, which shapes how you feel about the cinematic now. So how do I feel about this one? Because I have had some issues with the War Within story. And also, I made the joke about people saying nothing really happened in the Midnight Cinematic when I was talking about the Cataclysm one. This is your nothing really happened cinematic, okay? This is two dudes sitting on the sand talking to each other and then pointing at a thing and going, hey, yeah, that thing happened, we should deal with that. However, it doesn't come off that way at all. I really, really, really like this cinematic. I don't know if it should necessarily have been the War Within's expansion announcement cinematic. Maybe, I've been thinking about this for a few days, maybe this should have been the World Soul Saga announcement cinematic, and then they should have had a separate cinematic for the War Within. However, just as a cinematic by itself, this is excellent. This is easily A tier. It's so heartfelt, and I guess if we're talking about subconsciously how we feel about the story, you know, I do love how they salvaged Anduin's character in The War Within. I love how they explored his trauma. I don't necessarily love how he got his trauma. I don't necessarily love what they did with him in Shadowlands, but the way they've been exploring that has been really touching, personally. I've really enjoyed it, and everything about Anduin in this cinematic, and like his face, you know, I can kind of see where people are coming from with a Midnight cinematic, but we're not gonna linger on that too much because I don't really care that much about that particular aspect of the Midnight cinematic. But for this cinematic, just the realism on both Thrall and Anduin and their conversation. I would love more scenes like this, please. Maybe not as expansion announcements, and maybe that holds it back a bit. But, you know, as a piece of narrative content, this is fantastic and I love it. On to Midnight. So this is the new one. On to the newest cinematic. And maybe some people are going to skip to this because why would you talk about every single trailer before Midnight just to talk about the new Midnight cinematic? But yes, we'll probably talk about this one the most, right? I've watched this one a lot recently. But anyway, I'm going to go watch it again just to completely refresh my memory, and we'll talk about it. And I promise we won't talk too much about, Liadrin doesn't look right.
The Sunwell will not fall!
Not while we draw breath.
I'm sorry. I know this cinematic has its haters, because we've had not much else to talk about for a few days while the Gamescom reveals have been all over the place. But this is S tier. I don't give a shit. This is so good. This is so good. This cinematic is incredible. Okay, I know. Ooh, Liadrin looks more like an Elder Scrolls elf than a World of Warcraft elf. I get it, okay? Yes, I was a little distracted by that too. I actually think on rewatch, it's not as bad as people have been making it out to be through, you know, very particular use of still images. When you watch the cinematic, it's fine. But yes, it's just so good for cinematic itself. I love, you know, Liadrin's fervor and her mantras, and I love that the only time when her appeal to the light actually works is when she throws those aside and actually makes a plea from the heart, and you can hear it in her voice. That's fantastic voice acting work. And I love Lorthamer. You can't even break one elf. And I love Zalataf's entrance as she rises through the floor, and the music's like, it's so good, dude. And the best part of this cinematic is when the army of the light appear like the rising sun of the dawn from the Sunwell and illuminate Zalataf's features. Oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. It's iconic. It's iconic. There you go, I've said it. Now, did I feel this strongly about the Legion cinematic when it was new? Did I feel this strongly about... Oh, come on, behave. Did I feel this strongly about the Warlords of Draenor cinematic when it was new? Maybe I have recency bias. I don't think I do. I do wonder if I should also put these in S tier for their own reasons and then leave these two down in A tier, but I think ultimately, I think I am happy with this ranking. And yeah, if you're wondering, it is like left and most side is like top of A, right and most side is bottom of A, that kind of thing. And I do still think you can't beat Wrath of the Lich King and Burning Crusade. I think they're too iconic, they're too beloved, they're too perfect for what they are. But I think Midnight really does come close to matching them. You know, it's more narrative heavy, there's more beats going on, and for that reason it's a little bit harder to be this perfect package of perfection, but I think it's just so good. That was maybe my 7th time watching it, and I still was gushing at the end of it to nobody, to my monitor, going, oh my god, it's so good. So yeah, if you're wondering how I feel about the Midnight cinematic, there it is, I guess. Just go rewatch it. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. Stupid, sexy Lorthamer. Anyway, this is I think I'm happy with this as my tier list. There will be some things on here you disagree with. Again, this is my personal list. Feel free to let me know yours below. Remember, I did go back and rewatch every single one, so these are my freshest takes on these, my 2025 opinions. But yeah, it was been pretty fun to do. It's always fun to go and revisit these cinematics. I wouldn't mind doing one of these kinds of videos in the future for like, the Harbingers, Warbringers, Afterlives, those styles of cinematic, and maybe like some assorted extras like the Illyria animated cinematic they did for War Within. I think I'll wait until we see whatever they're cooking up for Midnight in that regard, which will probably be coming out early next year, that sort of stuff. So, yeah, maybe I'll do another one of these kinds of videos in the future. But either way, let me know what you thought. Leave a like if you liked the video, and I will catch you in whatever I make next.